Oh, with Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant is here, and I know you feel real good now.
Oh, it was really good last night. I think that this has been a convincing tour for me. Hello.
Is this Robert Plant?
Occasionally, yeah.
Oh, God, I want you to know that I'm having heart failure.
Oh, good fuck.
You have got to be the most fantastically sexy man I have ever seen in my life. I was dying, literally, man. You were just standing up there, and I was, well, I'd say it, except we're on the radio. You know?
Say it.
No.
Yeah, take that attitude of him. He's here all the time. I'm not.
You're so sexy. It's unbelievable. Last night I was watching you through the binoculars, and I just want you to know that you are so sexy. It's unbelievable.
Hello.
How are you?
Is your honey dripping?
Oh, yeah.
How are you, anyway? Hi.
Hi, guess what? I think you're a fox.
A fox?
Yes, a fox.
What's that mean?
That means a very good-looking man.
Welcome to episode 2 of the making of How the West Was Won. I hope you enjoyed the first installment where we explored Zeppelin's 1972 career context and fascinating details about the two shows at the LA Forum and Long Beach Arena. Now we'll dive deeper into how this live album came to see the light of day. Our story begins where another one ended, more specifically with Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes. It was the year 2000, and their partnership had just concluded after a final series of 13 shows, including an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. This invigorating collaboration brought Jimmy back into the spotlight and revitalized the Black Crowes' career. Unfortunately, it ended in troubled circumstances. I highly recommend checking out my 54-minute documentary on this post-Led Zeppelin chapter from the 1990s. While the split wasn't the main reason, it certainly fueled Jimmy Page's determination to stay active, leading to the very ambitious Led Zeppelin DVD project. This became a 3-year endeavor as Jimmy searched for lost media sources to create the ultimate Zeppelin visual experience. All this while somewhat reconnecting with John Paul Jones and Robert Plant in the process. It was in the middle of this media quest that Page looked to the West. Quote, "While I was searching through the archives for visual and audio material for the Led Zeppelin DVD, I rediscovered these 1972 performances from the 25th June LA Forum and 27th June Long Beach Arena. This is Led Zeppelin at its best and an illustration of how the West was won." A great statement that sums up the idea quite well. But of course, there's more to it. So Jimmy Page found the 1972 tapes. Who did he call in for mixing? The Caveman, South African music producer Kevin Shirley. Why him? Well, Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes released one album, Live at the Greek. Shirley saw the band play at New York's Roseland Ballroom in October 1999, just days before they headed out for the Greek Theater. The Caveman recorded the shows, got the tapes, and worked out the mixes without any input from Page nor the Crowes, as an official release was not planned at the time. The end result was a change of heart for the powers that be. The album hit the shelves in February of 2000, and the triple guitar attack of mostly Zeppelin material was brilliant. A synchronized display of humbucker telepathy, a well-oiled machine, and a rhythm section led by Chris Robinson's voice, a la 1975 Robert Plant. Mastered by Remastered's own George Marino at Sterling Sound, it provided a refreshing dose of electric crunch into the new decade. Page took note. He was real happy with the results. It sounded modern while retaining the root, the substance, the element. Jimmy chose Kevin Shirley as the right man for the job. He was up to the current sounds of the market, and he was someone who could handle heavy-sounding stuff. Some of his most recent credit entries at the time included recording for Rush's Counterparts, 1993, producer engineering and mixing for Journey's Trial by Fire, 1996, producer engineering and mixing for Falling Into Infinity, Dream Theater, 1997, mixing for Liquid Tension Experiment, 1998, engineering and production for Dream Theater Once in a Lifetime, 1998. You see where this is going, right? Producer engineering and mixing for The Black Crowes' By Your Side, 1999. Mixing for Liquid Tension Experiment 2, also from 1999. Mixing on some tracks from Dream Theater's Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. And mixing on Little Steven's Born Again Savage, from 1999, featuring Jason Bonham on drums, and mastered by Remastered's own George Marino. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Up to How the West Was Once's release, Shirley's resume included production, engineering, mixing for Joe Satriani's Engines of Creation, Iron Maiden's Brave New World, Dream Theater's live scenes from New York, and Iron Maiden's Rock in Rio. So as you can see, Jimmy Page was going to work with a mixing engineer that brought modern day tools to augment the sonic spectrum of a Led Zeppelin concert experience.
Oh, I loved working with Led Zeppelin. I mean, just from the point of view of working with them as my favorite band from growing up, you know, and like so many. But I said to Jimmy Page at one point I said, you know, this is the soundtrack of my life. He said, Kevin, it's the soundtrack of my life. And I was like, all right, well, you got a point there. Trove of treasures ahead of us, and it actually was, you know, just an inventory of nightmare, because all these old moldy tapes needed to be baked and transferred before we could finally listen to what was on them. It was a joy of a session. It took much longer than we thought it would take.
Kevin Shirley worked both the Zeppelin DVD and CD project in parallel, meaning he listened to a lot of multi-track recordings, some 15 shows according to him. While there was a video for most of these, the 1972 tapes didn't, so it became clear this could be a CD-only release. Now, because Jimmy Page was interested in 5.1 surround sound mixing for the DVD, you can tell this concept found its way onto the CD mix as well. A whole lot of compression was used, with Jimmy providing a clear instruction from the get-go. According to Kevin Shirley, Page wanted to, quote, hear lots of cymbals. Mixing sessions took place at Sarm West in London. You know, the old island studios where rhythm tracks for Stairway to Heaven were recorded? And Yes's Big Generator, which you can check the making of here in the channel. Kevin Shirley had many hundreds of effects to choose from, but he stuck to mostly boost the frequencies and take it from there. So the 1972 tapes, LA Forum and Long Beach Arena, got a 1176 compressor for Robert's vocals, this one a trick from the past, which was used on some guitars and drums for Led Zeppelin 4. A PV Cosmos Pro subharmonic synthesizer was used for Jimmy's guitar, which was an interesting choice given the fact this machine basically adds a low-end boost.
Not to mention,
it's normally used for bass guitars, so this was definitely going for a bigger guitar tone. The Cosmos generates new harmonics below the original sound, so it was a double-edged sword, resulting in a very loud mix. A Fairchild stereo compressor was used for drums, bass, and keys. Shirley said he wanted to recreate Jimmy's studio guitar attack, or thump, thus with the compressor tried to keep that effect going, and I believe that created problems later in the mix because it was Bonzo's drum kit, the element that created that thump, on stage, with everything else built around it. Maybe Kevin Shirley should have reached to a former Shoko sound engineer for a better understanding of a Zeppelin concert mix. Shirley's technique seems to work for crunch dance metal or progressive metal. Led Zeppelin is a different beast. The drums are the starting point. I'm not saying Shirley did a bad job, quite the contrary, he delivered the goods he knew how to make based on his resume. Maybe there was some ear fatigue going in the studio, as Kevin Shirley was mixing How the West Was Won on the same schedule as the DVD stuff, including Royal Albert Hall 1970, Earl's Court 1975, and Nebworth 1979. His ears had to be tired. Shirley stated he went for When the Levee Breaks as his Zeppelin reference or definite sound for the project. While I understand his reasoning, I believe this track shouldn't be a guide because it's a studio creation thanks to the creative use of echo units, compressors, and Hedley Grange's Haunted Spirits. It is not a fair representation of what Led Zeppelin was on stage. Whole Lotta Love is a much better reference, or something like Good Times, Bad Times. Both Zeppelin shows were recorded via Wally Heider's mobile unit. Outside of the famous San Francisco recording studio at the time, Wally Heider's mobile recording was always booked and busy. 1972 alone had several album releases that were captured thanks to this technology. Wattstack's The Living Word, John Lee Hooker at Soledad Prison, Donny Hathaway Live, Jimi Hendrix in the West, Procol Harum live concert with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, the Marisol Festival in Puerto Rico featuring names like ELP, and The Doors' Absolutely Live. Fun fact, Wally Heider's mobile unit was one of 2 recording trucks used for Peter Frampton's Comes Alive.
This blend of robust red wine vinegar, oils, onion, oregano, and garlic can startle a salad. There, you saw it for yourself.
That is good.
Now look, if Pfeiffer is a new name to you, and it is in the West, you just have to find out why Pfeiffer dressings can really startle a salad.
That attitude, he's here all the time, I'm not.
I can't say it on the radio.
Oh, I know how you feel, though.
So back to Led Zeppelin 1972. 18 songs were selected for the final release. Were there any edits? Here's a track-by-track analysis of the material. I want to personally thank Eddie Edwards' fantastic website, The Garden Tapes, as the source for this information, and like I said, On My Song Remains the Same series, wherever you are, Mr. Edwards, I salute you. The Zeppelin community is forever thankful for your sonic wisdom. Also, let me add a technical comment here. It seems John Bonham's snare was tuned a bit higher for the Long Beach Arena show. That snare took a severe beating, and they probably had to retune it for the second night of recording. The first night at the Forum has a lower sounding snare, which feels heavier. Because the LA show was so long and massive, it makes sense they had to work on the snare for June 27th. Poor snare, but it was all in the name of rock and roll. LA Drone. Like I mentioned on episode 1, this was a pre-recorded tape loop that was played at the start of the concert. Ironically, this LA Drone was taken from Long Beach Arena, so it's technically a Long Beach drone. Immigrant Song follows, and as you'd think, it was taken from Long Beach Arena as well. Some minor edits were made on the vocal side of things, taking bits from the LA Forum show to create a much more consistent Robert Plant mix. The song's signature vocal intro was achieved through a meticulous process of merging recording sources. Heartbreaker is credited as being from Long Beach Arena June 27th. What we hear in the record is June 27th up to minute 2:07, and the rest is June 25th at the LA Forum. 2 cuts appear in Jimmy's guitar solo spot, including Simon & Garfunkel's The 59th Street Bridge song, removed out of possible royalty headaches Page didn't want to deal with. Black Dog is next, and it was taken from June 25th at the Forum, but this song was actually played after Over the Hills and Far Away. 2 very small vocal bits were punched in from Long Beach Arena. Here's Robert's actual intro for the song.
This is one about a poor dog who really... let me tell you about this poor dog, because he was a retriever in his early days. And the only thing he could ever find in his late days was his old lady who lived 2 houses away from where we were recording. And he used to go and see his old lady quite regularly, but after he boogied and everything else, he couldn't get back. And we used to carry him back. And this has got nothing to do with a chick in Detroit. It was a black dog.
Over the Hills and Far Away uses the introduction from the Forum, and then it goes to Long Beach Arena. Based on the bootlegs, there seems to be a very brief duplicate bassline cut and paste job on the transition to the guitar solo.
It's been a long time again. We finally saved up the airfare to get back. We like to try a number out of the new album. We haven't really decided what we're going to do at the end of it yet, so you have to bear with us. This is a thing called Over the Hills and Far Away, which is always a good place to be.
Since I've Been Loving You has no edits. I repeat, no edits. And it was taken from Long Beach Arena, June 27th. This was Robert's brief introduction to this number.
I think I'm gonna have to let that money.
The spoken word introduction for Stairway to Heaven is from Los Angeles, with some parts removed. The rest of the track was recorded at Long Beach Arena, but there is one element on the mix that was taken from England 1973. Yeah, it's a time travel situation. Here's what happened. By the time Led Zeppelin played California in 1972, John Paul Jones was playing the organ on Stairway and didn't get a Mellotron until October that same year in time for Japan. It was revealed in 2005 that among the tapes considered for How the West Was Won was Led Zeppelin's Southampton University gig, January 1973. So yes, they worked the multitracks for this. John Paul Jones played a Mellotron here. Kevin Shirley did some mixing work for this, but Page went for the Forum and Long Beach Arena shows instead. So based on the Southampton bootleg, it seems they took John Paul Jones's Mellotron track and put it on the 1972 recording at Long Beach. Say what you will, but it was a fantastic choice because it greatly contributes to the feel within the song. A time travel moment, John Paul Jones 1972 and 1973, both on the same track.
This one came on a very enlightened evening. I think it was an alternative between going to London's version of the Whiskey A Go-Go or staying in and writing a song. And I just couldn't make that club. This is called Stairway to Heaven.
Going to California was taken from Long Beach Arena in its entirety. Two very brief cuts were done, removing seconds from the final product. It has to be said, Robert Plant's vocal take at the Forum was not as powerful. That's the way it comes from the LA Forum, but it had to be fixed because Jimmy came in a bit early, thus Robert had to wait for the right moment to come back. This was fixed on the official release by pasting a bit from the first chorus. Now, could Jimmy use the Long Beach Arena version? Well, no. Robert threw in some lyrics that were maybe aimed at people throwing firecrackers. Brunner Stump, or Brunner Stump, was recorded at Long Beach Arena with a brief cut around the 3:30-minute mark. Dazed and Confused is quite a surprise for Zeppelin standards of The Song Remains the Same soundtrack. This version was taken from the LA Forum show and it's almost edit-free, outside of two microscopic cuts that really do not alter the song at all. We could say there are no edits on this track. What you hear is what you get. This is what the audience heard back in June 1972. What Is and What Should Never Be comes from Long Beach Arena, but there are some vocals spliced in cuts taken from the Forum. Dancing Days has Robert's introduction from LA, but of course, it had some parts removed. I mentioned this on episode 1. He talked about the band's new album having a possible title of Burn That Candle. The actual song though was taken from Long Beach Arena, with some minor edits. Moby Dick has the introduction from Long Beach Arena, but the rest of the track is from the LA Forum, June 25th, with no edits. This is a complete version. What a great production choice. I love all 19 minutes of this epic drum solo. Whole Love was taken from both nights. It begins in LA up to the 8th minute mark, where it switches to Long Beach Arena. Then we're back at the Forum at the 20:45 minute mark.
Before, but it still stands.
I hear my mom and papa talking. You got to let that boy boogie.
And I was exhausted, but I felt so good. I didn't tell him I've been boogieing just the same.
I think John Lee Hooker said that. Ooh, it's a boogie boogie.
Rock and Roll was taken from Long Beach Arena, but it is true that both versions, Forum and Long Beach, sound almost identical to each other, which makes it hard to distinguish where some portions come from. Because Long Beach Arena had no encores outside of Rock and Roll, The Ocean was taken from the Forum with pretty much no edits. And just like The Ocean, Bring It On Home was also captured at the Forum. Surprisingly, no edits were done outside of split-second cuts that don't really alter the groove nor anything.
Is a plate. It is not plastic, china, or earthenware. It's a remarkable material from Corning. We call it Corel Livingware. It looks like china, yet it's safe in oven and dishwasher. 20-piece service for $4, only $19.95. Corel Livingware by Corning.
A supersonic transport. Now let's do it.
The president's fight for our nation's air industry has not been won yet. This is why we need President Nixon, now more than ever.
Wrong number.
Hello! This is getting more like Uncle Mac's children's favourites by the minute.
Design duties for How the West Was Won were handled by a team of artists Phil Lemon, who worked on the Scangers' 1999 self-titled release, and longtime Jimmy Page friend and photographer Ross Halfin. Judging by this cover, you can see traces of Lemon's texture-style paintings used as backdrop for Led Zeppelin's album. Note, Phil Lemon wasn't hired in relation to the Lemon song. It was just a coincidence. Nobody squeezed his lemon. 4 photographers were credited for the image source. 2 of them, veterans Jim Cummins and Michael Putland, were familiar names in the Zeppelin camp appearing on the Remasters box set. Cummins was also credited on the early days, pages 3, 4, and 10, capturing the band in 1969 and 1970. Michael Putland's long list of works includes Works, Volume 2. Putland was credited on a rare 2001 Warner Chappell box set, Led Zeppelin, a 3-CD promotional set, as well as Robert Plant's 66 to Timbuktu. Third photographer Jeffrey Mayer was credited for Zeppelin's box set 2 and the 2001 box set. James Fortune was also called in for the project. I did a quick Google search of his works and found some of his most famous Zeppelin shots were taken at the 1973 and 1975 concerts in LA. The album's font used the same style as BBC Sessions, which added some slight continuity to their live release history, or in some cases, confusion. As I was looking at the cover for this documentary series, I noticed there was something strange about it, so I decided to carefully inspect each photograph. You'd think all 4 shots on the cover were taken from the June 1972 shows, right? Sorry to burst your bubble, but no, they're not. Although we can find Jimmy's photograph in the 2018 booklet, his hairstyle looks a bit different from June 1972. I checked the records, and while Newcastle 1972 was a strong contender, I believe this was taken at the LA Forum in 1973, matching Jimmy's hairstyle from that period. And this LA Forum 1973 show was shot by James Fortune, the photographer I mentioned before. Jumble Jones's facial hair helps pinpoint the timeline, as he didn't have any throughout most of 1972, including the Japan and Montreux shows. His facial hair reappeared during the late 1972 UK tour. Since Jones got a haircut midway through December 1972, this photo was probably taken at Newcastle on November 30th. Jonesy's vest can also be seen at Alexandra Palace on December 22nd and on the first night in Southampton at the Gaumont Theatre on January 21st, 1973. Fun fact, Jones's BBC Sessions photo was taken from this very same concert. As for Robert Plant, this photo was shot at the LA Forum in June 1973. The giveaway is the handkerchief, a classic pose in tribute to Zeppelin's historic show at the same venue a year prior. Now John Bonham. At first glance it looks like a 1972 shot, but if you look at the bass drum head, you'll notice his symbol isn't there. You could argue it was photoshopped, but why would they do that? This suggests a dark colored drum kit without the symbol. While it could be 1970 before the Untitled era, Bonzo's facial hair doesn't match that time period. This leads me to believe it's from 1977, with the Ludwig stainless steel kit. I narrowed it down to Bonham wearing black, most likely from Led Zeppelin's June 11th show at Madison Square Garden. My second best guess would be Landover, Maryland on May 28th or May 30th. So you've got 2 photographs from 1973, one from 1977, and Jones from late 1972. All 4 were placed against a texturized backdrop, and they needed an album title. Where did they find it? In the days of their youth, when they were told what it meant to be a man. How the West Was Won was one of the most successful films of the 60s, with a star-studded cast and a huge budget of $15 million. It was one of the cinematic events of the decade. The movie's first premiere took place in the UK on November 1st, 1962 at London's Casino Cinerama, located near Gerrard Street, where Led Zeppelin's first rehearsal changed the course of rock history in 1968. How the West Was Won ran for 123 weeks at Casino Cinerama and became the second highest grossing film of 1963, just behind Cleopatra. A similar red font style was used for Led Zeppelin's live album, and thus the album cover design was complete. The 2003 release had no booklet outside of credits and Jimmy Page's text. No backdrop photographs holding the discs, just lots of white space. The 3 CDs featured visual variations on Swan Songs' Fallen Angel, making this a strange full circle and the band's second live album to be released by Atlantic after BBC sessions, although that's more like a retrospective. How the West Was Won was the first specific time period concert album the band put out, since the song remains the same. The 3 CD set was released on May 27, 2003, the very same day Page, Plant and Jones attended the DVD's premiere at New York's Low State Theater. Robert was in the middle of a small break after touring his 7th studio album, Dreamland, the previous year, and was months away from releasing his 2-disc 66 to Timbuktu solo career compilation. John Paul Jones would go for Guitar Wars in August, and Jimmy Page was pretty focused on promoting the new Zeppelin release for the next couple of years. Although historic sales figures for How the West Was Won were almost the same as Coda, its initial promo frenzy sent the release to Billboard's 200 #1 spot on June 14th, with 154,000 units sold. Metallica followed the next week with nearly 500,000 copies for Saint Anger. Led Zeppelin was the only classic rock band to chart like this in 2003. Despite Atlantic's best efforts, the Led Zeppelin DVD momentum grabbed all the attention, and How the West Was Won slowly became known as the other live release, selling about 400,000 fewer copies than BBC sessions. The album's title didn't help much. A portion of record buyers thought it was the soundtrack to the DVD, which had a Western-inspired Grand Canyon design, so the Grand Canyon and the West was one thing was confusing. In retrospect, the 3 CD set would have benefited from a more specific title that reflected its musical contents. Something like Live from California 1972, USA 72, or even June and Confused might have been better, as it would have made it clearer this was a complementary piece to the DVD, filling in the gaps for its only 1972 offering, the Australian footage, with audio for Immigrant Song taken from How the West Was Won. This marketing decision worked against the 3 CD set, as it was hard to convince some music fans to purchase an audio-only release after 5 hours and 20 minutes of Zeppelin footage on the DVD release. All the interviews and articles from that time blurred the line, pushing the DVD above everything else. While Page did talk about the live album in the July 2003 issue of Guitar World, the main focus was, of course, the DVD, and we the fans wanted to get our hands on that first. It was a product that exceeded all previous Zeppelin bootleg expectations, especially given the visual scarcity of the 1976 movie as the main go-to source. How the West Was Won had an additional problem for casual Zeppelin buyers. The setlist wasn't much different from what you can find in existing live releases at the time, including the DVD. Some rumors suggest that the slightly underwhelming sales performance of the 3 CD set is one of the reasons we haven't seen more concert releases from Page and the Zeppelin camp. What I can say is, there is a market for it, just don't release a live DVD at the same time. But in the end, what hurt How the West Was Won the most was the sound. The loudness wars thing made this album prone to ear fatigue, in much the same way as Metallica's Saint Anger. It was overcompressed and some decibels above sanity. Then in 2018, Led Zeppelin's 50th anniversary, fans got a sort of treat with the March release of How the West Was Won Super Deluxe Edition, which included vinyl, CD, and DVD audio formats. The 2018 design elements were also better than the original, with different color takes on the cover, solid white color CDs, and an 18-page booklet featuring actual photographs from both the June 25th and June 27th shows at the Forum and Long Beach Arena. This was a much welcome addition, as it gave the proper visual setting for the music to transport you. I wonder why these were included before, as they provide the necessary context to understand where the band was in 1972. The deluxe set added more pictures in the ways of master tapes, concert posters, and more. It would have been nice to include some liner notes about the story behind these shows, but now you have this documentary series to help with that. Check out episode 1 of this series for instructions on how to spot June 25th and June 27th based on the outfits in these photos. Back covers show the venues where the songs were actually performed, as opposed to the somewhat confusing asterisk symbols of the 2003 edition. I do have to criticize the packaging though. The middle cutout where the booklet goes makes CD2 storage a nightmare. I wish this had been released in a jewel case instead. No bonus tracks were added to the 2018 release, and one track, Mary Lou, was cut from the Whole Lotta Love medley, but man, the sound was a major improvement over the original. The album is now perfect and you can enjoy the low-end frequencies without the nasty 2003 compression and clipping. Because no live DVD was released alongside it, the new version of How the West Was Won had much more visibility in the market. Here's a quick audio comparison of both releases. If you don't have the 2018 version, please get it. It's worth having in your collection. I didn't get the Super Deluxe set due to a tight budget, but I have no regrets of getting my Digipack copy. Zero quantities of regret and a big smile on my face. Your 2003 copy can become a paperweight on your desk. So this was the making of How the West Was Won. I hope you enjoyed this episode and be sure to hit the like button, and remember you can support me via Patreon or PayPal to keep JCM Films in business. I hope you spin your copy of the album and go back to June 1972 when the world was a better place because Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell hadn't been released yet. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.